The first thing my father said after 11 years of silence was that I needed to cover every reflective surface in his house before sunset. I thought the cancer had reached his brain. Then his hospice nurse glanced at the microwave door and saw his reflection sit up behind her, even though my father was still lying flat in the next room. She didn't scream. She just smiled. It wasn't her normal smile. Her lips pulled back too far, exposing her gums, while the rest of her face stayed loose and confused. My father shouted my name from the bedroom. Evan, turn her around. Don't let her see herself. I grabbed the nurse by the shoulders and pulled her away from the microwave. She resisted for maybe 2 seconds, pushing backward as if someone had hooked a finger through her spine. Then the expression vanished. She blinked at me. "What are you doing?" I let go and tried to come up with an answer that wouldn't make either of us sound insane. Behind her, the microwave reflected an empty kitchen. My father had called me that morning from a number I didn't recognize. He didn't say hello. He didn't apologize for disappearing after my mother died or explain why he had ignored every message my sister, and I sent him for more than a decade. He just said, "I don't have much time." Come before dark, I nearly hung up. Then he said my childhood nickname. Please, Evie. Nobody had called me that since I was 9. His house was outside Pittsburgh, at the end of a narrow road lined with mailboxes and overgrown drainage ditches. It was a low brick ranch built sometime in the 70s, the kind with narrow hallways and dark wood paneling that made every room feel smaller than it was. By the time I arrived, strips of black plastic had already been taped over the windows. The bathroom mirror was wrapped in a moving blanket. Framed pictures faced the walls. A dish towel covered the stainless steel toaster. Even the chrome faucet had been smeared with something dull and gray. I install commercial glass for a living. Storefronts, office partitions, automatic doors, security laminate. I spend most days noticing reflections other people ignore. That house made me uncomfortable before I ever saw my father. There was nowhere for my eyes to rest. Every surface that should have returned a little light had been blinded. The hospice nurse introduced herself as Marlene. She was in her late 50s, practical and calm, with a canvas medical bag and reading glasses hanging from a cord around her neck. She warned me that my father was taking morphine and sometimes became confused. "He's still oriented most of the time," she said. "But he has some unusual anxieties." That was when she looked toward the microwave. After I pulled her away, she insisted nothing had happened. "You startled me," she said. My father called from the bedroom again. "Cover it." His voice was thin, but the command in it sounded familiar. He used to speak that way when he caught my sister or me playing near the road. I draped my jacket over the microwave door. Marlene watched me do it. "I don't think feeding into delusions is helpful," she said. "I'm not feeding into anything. I just don't want him upset." She gave me a professional look that meant she knew I was lying, but didn't consider it worth arguing about. My father looked 20 years older than the man I remembered. He had always been broad through the shoulders, with thick black hair and hands that could lift both of us kids at once. The man in the hospice bed was narrow and yellow-gray, with silver stubble across his cheeks and collarbones sharp beneath his t-shirt. There was no mirror in the bedroom. The television had been removed from the wall, leaving 4 bolt holes and a pale rectangle in the paint. The window was covered with black plastic and cardboard. The metal bed rails were wrapped in gauze. He looked past me toward the hallway. Did she see it? She saw something. Did she copy it? I thought about Marlene's mouth. For a second, he shut his eyes. Then it knows she's here. I pulled the folding chair closer to his bed. What knows? He ignored the question. Your sister can't come. Leela is already on her way. His eyes opened. You called her. She's your daughter. I called you. You don't get to decide which one of us shows up after vanishing for 11 years. He stared at me for a long moment. His face didn't harden the way I expected it to. He looked scared. Not of dying. Of Leela arriving. You have to stop her, he said. You're going to explain what's happening first. There isn't time. There has been plenty of time. My voice came out louder than I intended. Marlene glanced into the room, then quietly returned to the kitchen. My father watched her leave. When the sun goes down, he said, anything dark enough to show a face becomes a door. I almost laughed. I didn't because of the microwave. He told me to check the house again. I did it mostly to get away from him. I covered the glass oven door with a bath towel. I placed socks over the brass doorknobs. I taped newspaper across the framed prints in the hallway, even though the glass was dusty enough that I could barely see myself. In the laundry room, I found a narrow window above the utility sink that he had missed. I cut open a black trash bag and taped it over the glass. When I turned around, I saw movement in the washing machine door. Front-loading washer. Round glass. Dark interior. My reflection stood in the laundry room behind me. Except I was facing the machine, and it was. The reflected version of me had its back turned. I didn't move. Neither did it. I could see the back of its neck, the collar of my blue work shirt, the thinning patch near my crown that Leela liked to point out whenever she was annoyed with me. Then its head began to turn. I threw the roll of tape. It struck the glass, bounced off and rolled beneath a shelf. The reflection snapped back into place. I was staring at myself again. Pale, wide-eyed, shoulders raised. I covered the washer with a blanket from the dryer. When I returned to the bedroom, I didn't tell my father what I had seen. I'm still not sure why. Maybe because saying it aloud would have moved it from a moment of stress into something real. Maybe because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of being right after everything he had done. Or maybe I was embarrassed. I was 38 years old, and for one ugly second I had been afraid of my own face. Marlene left shortly after 5. She checked my father's medication, gave me the hospice number, and told me she would return in the morning. At the front door, she stopped. Did your father ever work in healthcare? No, that's strange. What is? She touched her cheek. He called me Denise earlier. Is that not your name? My sister's name was Denise. The way she said was made me ask the next question carefully. She died when we were teenagers. Marlene looked back toward the bedroom. I never told him about her. My father heard the front door close. You shouldn't have let her leave alone. What was I supposed to do, lock her in? You were supposed to make sure she didn't look at anything. She's a hospice nurse. She has a car with mirrors. He turned his face toward the wall. Call her, I did. It went to voicemail. I told myself she was driving. At 5:30, Leela texted that she was 20 minutes away. My father became agitated when I told him. His breathing quickened, and he tried to push himself upright. You need to send her home. She has as much right to be here as I do. That's what it wants. What does that mean? It wants people who remember the same face. I asked whose face. He looked at me. Mine. Leela arrived carrying 2 grocery bags and the anger she had been saving for 11 years. She was 34, a public defender, and better than me at converting fear into irritation. Before she entered the bedroom, she criticized the smell, the dark windows, and the fact that I had parked halfway across the driveway. Then she saw him. The groceries slipped a few inches in her arms. For a moment, she looked like a little girl again. Our father said her name. That was all it took. She set the bags down and went to him. I stood in the doorway while she took his hand. Neither of them apologized. Maybe they didn't know where to start. Leela noticed the covered surfaces within 5 minutes. She assumed our father was afraid of seeing what the cancer had done to him. When I tried to explain the microwave and washing machine, she looked at me the same way Marlene had. You've been here for 3 hours, she said. He's already got you participating in this. I saw something. You saw a reflection. It turned around. Reflections don't turn around. I'm aware. Our father tightened his grip on her hand. Don't uncover anything. Leela looked down at him. Why? Because I asked you not to. She laughed once without humor. You haven't asked me for anything since I was 23. The light outside weakened. The black plastic over the bedroom window turned from dull gray to featureless black. My father watched it. We need to move the chair, he said. What chair? I asked. The one facing the window. There was no chair near the window. Then I remembered the folded metal chair I had carried from the kitchen. It was beside his bed, angled toward the covered glass. I moved it. He relaxed slightly. Leela leaned close to me. What happens if the furniture faces the wrong direction? I don't know. You didn't ask. I've asked a lot of things. And he answers like this. Our father closed his eyes. Because explanations make you picture it. Leela looked at me. That is convenient. At 6:12, Marlene called me back. At first, I heard only road noise. Marlene, a breath crackled through the speaker. Then she said, I made it home. Her voice sounded normal. I asked whether she felt okay. I'm fine. I just wanted you to know I made it home. That's good. I made it home. She repeated it in exactly the same tone. My father opened his eyes. Hang up. I turned away from him. Marlene is someone with you. The road noise stopped. In the silence, I heard a faint squeak. Rubber against glass. 3 short strokes. A pause. 3 more. Someone was wiping a mirror. Marlene, a man spoke from the other end. Evie, it was my father's voice. I ended the call. Leela had heard it. Her expression changed. Not belief exactly, but the beginning of it. Our father asked whether she had said his name. She used your voice, I said. That isn't what I asked. No. She called me Evie. He turned his face into the pillow. I'm sorry. Leela stepped closer to the bed. What is happening? He didn't answer. She pulled the pillow away from his face. Dad, the bedside lamp flickered. For less than a second, the room went dark. When the light returned, I saw my father's face reflected in the small glass vial hanging from his IV stand. The curved surface distorted him, stretching his forehead and narrowing his jaw. His reflection was smiling. My father was not. I knocked the vial from the hook. It struck the floor but didn't break. Leela stared at it. The reflection inside rolled across the carpet as the vial moved, still smiling until it disappeared beneath the bed. Our father started crying. That disturbed me more than the glass. He had not cried when our mother died. He had not cried at the funeral. He had stood beside the casket with one hand on my shoulder, and his eyes fixed somewhere above everybody's heads. I had hated him for that. I thought I could starve it, he said. Leela sat on the edge of the bed. Start at the beginning. He said the beginning was our mother. Not her death. The months before it. She had started covering mirrors after my 9th birthday. She told him her reflection sometimes looked at the children when she was looking somewhere else. At first, he thought she was exhausted. Then paranoid. One night, he found her standing in the bathroom with her forehead pressed to the mirror. She was whispering my name. When he pulled her away, the reflection stayed where it was. It watched him over her shoulder. My mother smashed the mirror with a soap dish. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Then my father found the broken pieces hidden in her dresser. She had arranged them into a rough oval. Each shard showed a different part of her face, but the pieces didn't match. One eye looked older. One side of her mouth belonged to somebody else. He threw the shards away. The next morning, my mother was gone. The police decided she had driven her car into the river because they found tire marks and one of her shoes near the bank. They never recovered the vehicle or her body. My father told us she had died because that was easier than telling 2 children she might still be looking out through every dark window in the house. Leela stood up. You let us believe she killed herself. I needed you to stop looking for her. You disappeared. It started using my reflection after she was gone. His voice weakened, and I had to lean closer. It showed me things that hadn't happened yet. You cutting yourself shaving. Leela crying in a courthouse bathroom. Both of you older. Every time I looked, it knew more about you. He said it couldn't invent a face. It needed memory. The more familiar the face, the more accurately it could wear it. Family members were best because they carried the same details from different years. My father could see my mother as a teenager. Leela could remember her at 36. I remembered the small scar above her lip and the way one eyebrow lifted before she laughed. Together, we could complete her. "That's why you stayed away?" I asked. "I thought if you forgot my face it couldn't reach you through me. You could have told us. You would have come looking. We did come looking. And I kept moving. The anger I had brought into that house didn't disappear. It changed shape. It became heavier." "You could have called once," Leela said. "I almost did. Every birthday. Then why didn't you?" He looked toward the covered window. "Because sometimes before the phone rang, I could see you answer in the screen." The lamp dimmed again. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A notification filled the lock screen. Face recognized. The phone unlocked itself. I wasn't holding it toward my face. It was lying flat in my palm. The front camera pointed at the ceiling. My father saw the screen and made a sound like air leaving a punctured tire. "Did you photograph me?" "No." "Did any camera see us together?" I remembered the laundry room. After covering the washer, I had taken out my phone. I hadn't consciously opened the camera, but I had checked the black screen for my reflection. For maybe 2 seconds, the front camera had been active. I told him. He tried to sit up again. "You gave it your adult face." Layla moved to steady him. "What does that mean? It doesn't need me anymore." The lights went out. This time they stayed out. The backup battery on his oxygen concentrator began beeping. Leela turned on her phone flashlight. Our father slapped it from her hand. The phone landed face up on the carpet, its dark screen reflecting the underside of the bed. Something moved beneath us. Not under the bed. Inside the screen. A pale shape crawled across the glass, too compressed to identify. It reached the edge of the display and stopped. I covered the phone with my shoe. From the hallway came the sound of tape peeling from a wall. One long, deliberate pull. Then another. Someone was uncovering the pictures. Leela whispered, "Is Marlene back?" My father shook his head. The front door was still locked. I could see the deadbolt from the bedroom. Another strip of tape came loose. A framed print fell and struck the hallway floor. Glass broke. The sound was followed by a woman laughing softly. Leela gripped my arm. It was our mother's laugh. I hadn't realized I still remembered it. My father pointed toward the closet. Top shelf. Black case. I found an old tool case behind a stack of folded sheets. Inside was a circular hand mirror, wrapped in several layers of newspaper. The handle had broken off. A jagged crack divided the glass into 2 uneven halves, but the backing still held it together. I recognized the faded blue flowers around the edge. It had belonged to my mother. "You said you threw the pieces away," I said. I threw away the bathroom mirror. "What is this?" The first one she saw it in. The hallway laughter stopped. Something tapped on the bedroom door. 3 times. My father lowered his voice. "It follows the clearest remembered face. Right now that's mine. When I die it will look for whoever watched me last." "That's me," I said. No, it's both of you. The door moved inward half an inch. I had locked it earlier without remembering doing so. The knob turned slowly against the latch. Leela asked how the hand mirror helped. Our father looked at me. Broken glass confuses it. But only while the pieces stay out of alignment. I understood. Our mother had assembled the shards into a face. That was why it returned. What if we break every mirror? Leela asked. It will use screens, windows, water. Anything that returns a face. What stops it? My father's eyes moved to the case. It needs to see itself being recognized. That explanation made no sense to Leela. It did to me. I had spent 18 years installing glass in buildings designed to manipulate what people could and couldn't see. One-way mirrors, low-reflective display panels, privacy film, laminated security sheets that could crack without separating. A reflection is not an object. It is a path of light. Interrupt the path and the image disappears. In my truck, I had a partial roll of opaque security laminate left from a pharmacy job. Matte black on one side, adhesive on the other. It was meant to hold shattered glass together while blocking visibility. The truck was 30 feet from the front door. The bedroom door bowed inward. Something struck it from the hallway, not hard enough to break it. More like a shoulder testing the wood. My father said, "It will make you look." The voice outside changed. Evan, my mother. Not the vague memory of her laugh. Her exact voice. Sweetheart opened the door. Leela made a small sound beside me. I grabbed her face between my hands and forced her to look at me. That isn't her. Her eyes filled. I know, say it. That is Mom. Outside, our mother began to cry. My father pulled the oxygen tube from his nose. What are you doing? I asked. Giving you a reason to hurry. I put it back. You don't get to abandon us twice. For the first time that night, he almost smiled. His real smile. Crooked on the left side, the way mine is. The bedroom door slammed open. Marlene stood in the hallway. Blood ran from a cut above her ear. One lens was missing from her glasses. She must have driven back and struck something, though I never found out what. She looked at my father. Her face shifted. Nothing supernatural happened to the skin. It was worse than that. Her muscles arranged themselves into his expression. His narrowed eyes. His tight mouth. The deep line between his eyebrows. She had never known him well enough to copy those details. But I had. Evie, she said. I ran at her. I hit her with my shoulder, drove her into the opposite wall and kept moving. Leela shouted behind me. Marlene grabbed the back of my shirt, but lost her grip. The house was darker than it should have been. Covered windows seemed to generate their own blackness. My mother's voice came from the broken picture frames on the floor. My father's voice came from the brass plate around the front doorknob. I kept my eyes down. The laminate was in a cardboard tube behind the passenger seat of my truck. I grabbed it along with my glass cutter, rubber mallet, and a roll of foil tape. When I turned toward the house, I saw someone standing in the living room window. The plastic still covered the glass from inside. The figure was on the wrong side of it. A man my height pressed both palms against the black sheet. His face leaned close. I couldn't see his features, but I felt the instant he recognized me. The plastic bulged outward. I ran inside. Marlene was on the hallway floor, convulsing. Leela had wrapped a blanket around her head, so she couldn't see. My father was no longer breathing. The oxygen machine beeped beside him. Leela knelt with her hands on his chest. "Help me." I knew CPR would not reverse what the cancer had already done. I also knew I would hate myself forever if I didn't try. I dropped beside her and pressed down on his sternum. The room brightened with no electricity. Every covered surface began to shine through its covering. The black window. The blank phone beneath my shoe. The chrome hidden under gauze. The glass vial under the bed. They all showed my father sitting upright. Each reflection looked toward me. His body remained beneath my hands. The reflected versions raised one finger to their lips. Then all of them turned toward Leela. I understood what it was doing. She remembered him younger than I did. She was giving it a better face. "Don't look anywhere but at me," I told her. "What about Dad? He's gone." She stopped compressions. Her face folded, but she kept her eyes on mine. I unwrapped our mother's cracked hand mirror and set it against the wall. The two halves reflected different parts of the room. In one, my father's empty bed appeared. In the other, Leela and I were children. We stood in our old kitchen, watching our mother wash dishes. The image was impossible, but the details were exact. The yellow light above the sink. The chipped green mug. My mother's red sweater. Leela whispered, "Oh my God, don't recognize it. Whatever you see, don't give it a name." I unrolled the security laminate on the floor and peeled back the protective liner. The adhesive side shone like wet ice. My reflection appeared in it. It was smiling. I turned the sheet face down. The cracked hand mirror showed our mother turning from the sink. Her face had no features yet. They moved beneath the skin, searching for positions. My father's eyes appeared first. Leela's mouth. My nose. It was building itself from what we supplied. I raised the rubber mallet. The face in the mirror became my mother's. "Perfectly." She looked at me and said, "Evie, please." I almost answered. Leela grabbed my wrist. "That isn't her." I struck the glass. The mirror broke into a web of narrow pieces, but the old backing held them in place. The face split apart. One eye slid higher than the other. The mouth divided into 6 separate angles. A scream came from every reflective surface in the room. I pressed the laminate over the broken mirror. The adhesive caught the shards before they could shift back into alignment. Something struck the underside of the glass. The mirror jumped against the wall. I hit it again. More cracks spread through the image. The reflections around the room flickered. My father disappeared from the window, the vial and the phone screen. Only the broken mirror still moved. I folded it inward. The backing resisted, then tore along the main crack. Glass faced glass. The scream became a vibration in my hands. I folded it again, forcing the reflective surfaces against each other, then wrapped the bundle with foil tape until no edge remained visible. The house went dark. Not unnaturally dark. Just a powerless house at night. Marlene stopped convulsing. The oxygen machine gave one final beep and fell silent. Leela and I sat beside our father until morning. The official explanation was less complicated. Terminal cancer. Power failure. Hospice nurse disoriented after a minor car accident. Grieving family members under severe stress. Marlene remembered driving home, but not returning. She didn't remember the microwave or the phone call. She had no sister named Denise. Hospital records confirmed she had grown up as an only child. Leela found that detail more frightening than anything else. We cremated our father. Before the service, the funeral director asked whether we wanted a final photograph. Leela and I answered no at the same time. We emptied the house during the following week. There were no family albums, no framed portraits, no mirrors except the bundle I had sealed. My father had spent 11 years reducing himself to a voice on disconnected phones and a name on utility bills. I had thought his silence meant he didn't love us. Now I understood that love had been the one thing keeping him away. Understanding didn't make it hurt less. I took the folded mirror to the glass company where I work. I sealed it inside a wooden shipping crate lined with black foam, then placed the crate in the locked storage cage where we keep damaged security panels for insurance inspections. I didn't destroy it. That was partly caution. Breaking it further might separate the pieces. The other reason is harder to admit. Sometimes I wanted to open it. Not because I wanted to see the thing. Because for a few seconds, it had shown me my mother exactly as I remembered her. 3 months have passed. I no longer have mirrors in my apartment. I shave by touch. I keep my phone face down. I covered the television with a canvas drop cloth and replaced the glossy coffee maker with a cheap plastic one. Leela says this means it won. Maybe she's right. Last Tuesday, the security supervisor at work emailed me a video from the warehouse. The motion alarm had triggered inside the locked storage cage at 2:13 in the morning. Nothing moved in the footage. The crate remained closed. The tape was intact. No one entered or left. The supervisor assumed it was a sensor problem. I watched the clip 6 times before I noticed the glass partition behind the cage. The warehouse was empty, but my reflection stood in the partition. It was facing away from the camera. At 2:14, it raised one hand and pressed its palm to the glass. Then it turned its head toward the crate. It stayed there until 6:47, when the real me walked into the warehouse for work. For 11 seconds, both of us were visible at the same time. The version in the glass looked older. and when I passed the partition without noticing it, it smiled exactly the way my father used to.